Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Mornings with Matt podcast. On today's episode, we will be talking about the internship struggle. If you like what you hear and want to learn more, check out our website, morningswithmattp.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at morningswithmattp, or follow Matt Parkin on LinkedIn. So, for the internship struggle, why is it important to try to get an internship during the summer?
I think internships are a great opportunity for you to figure out what you want to do with your life, right? I know for me, when I came into university, I was originally thinking I wanted to study kinesiology and sports management. And then after grade 12 bio didn't go too well, we pivoted a little bit to study economics in first 2 years. But I knew at that time that economics wasn't an end game for me. I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do for the future. And so it was then where I really had to start thinking about, what do I actually want to do? And I think having an internship allows you to try things out, right? Because if you go, like, for example, my friend, he did an accounting internship in second year, absolutely hated it, right? So then he knew, okay, accounting's not for me. Maybe I want to explore finance. So then he can go do a finance internship. Okay, yeah, this makes sense. I like this. Or, oh, no, I didn't like that too much. Let's try marketing now, right? And so from a learning perspective, I think it's really cool. From a growth perspective too, working on projects with coworkers who are a little bit more experienced, a little bit older than you, it's a very different vibe compared to working with your classmates on a group project, right? Even though you might be doing similar tasks, right? Researching, problem solving, building slide decks, crunching numbers, it's in a different environment. There might be some tighter deadlines. You might have more people that are relying on you to complete your work. And so I find that it really helps you in terms of that growth, in terms of being more accountable, learning how to better manage your time, and really just getting to meet new people. When I did my internship at KPMG, I met so many great people from not only across the country, but also around the world, whether it was clients we were working with, whether it was internal people on my team or other interns. A lot of the companies do a really great job in terms of bringing interns together and having social activities and meet and greets and things like that. And even though my internship was virtual because of COVID, I think it was still a great opportunity. And now that companies are starting to open back up again and offer hybrid learning opportunities, I think that's a really great opportunity to go and meet new people, try something new, and see if you like it.
Yeah, no, that's actually interesting. Ask you a question based on one of the things you said. Um, I was wondering, so how well do you feel like school actually prepared you for those internships? Because I know you mentioned that school and like internship can feel a little bit different. So how well do you feel like you were prepared for those internships based on what you learned in school?
I think that the big thing that school teaches you is how to manage your time and do high volumes of work in short periods of time. I think that's one of the big takeaways from school. Second one being how to communicate with people and present, right? I think those are the two big learnings that help you in internships. But I think a lot of the tangible skills that I learned in my internship were either learned on the job or I brought into the job from my experience working in nonprofits, from my experience working in school clubs, right? Because some of that extracurricular work is a little bit more transferable into a workplace setting. Not to say that classes and group projects aren't transferable, but I think volunteering and extracurricular activities are a little bit more transferable. So I think that would be the big thing for me in terms of what school taught me was managing time as well as being able to communicate with other people.
Yeah, that's definitely a common sentiment I hear from a lot of different individuals in the industry. And like moving on to the next question, and I feel like this is like one a lot of people want to hear the answer to. So what advice do you have on finding an internship or co-op?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because the average job posting gets over 250 job applicants, right? And if a company is hiring one intern, they're not going to be interviewing more than 5, maybe 10 people if you're lucky. And so to get from that 250 applicant pool down to the 5 or 6 people that they're interviewing, half of that pool probably has bad grades. And so they get thrown off to the side. And so now you're down to half of those 250. And then that half, maybe half of them have a good resume. So now you're down to, let's call it 50 people, right? So you're in that top 50, you've got good grades, you got a good resume. and you're still not getting that interview. And that's what was happening for me in my first 2 years. And I didn't really know, didn't understand how to get from that top 50 into that top 5. And that's really where networking comes in. And so if you're able to start early and start reaching out to professionals and upper year students and learn more about the company, ask questions, help you decide which roles are the best fit for you, and kind of get your name and foot in the door. That way, when you're going to write your cover letter, you can name drop those people in the cover letter and say, hey, I really want to work here because I talked to person X and person Y and really loved hearing about X and Y initiatives that they were working on. That, to me, as a hiring manager or a recruiter going through a cover letter, you're getting bumped to the top of the pile because A, you've put in the work and effort, and you're not just quick applying and spraying and praying to hundreds of jobs. But then that person who's reviewing the cover letter is probably going to pull up Slack or Teams and message those people that you mentioned and say, hey, Johnny, Susie mentioned she talked to you. Like, what did you think? And Johnny's going to be like, yeah, interview Susie. Susie was great. Right. And so by having those conversations, that's how you can really get from that top 50 into that top 5. And it's something to remember because networking is time consuming, right? It's a lot easier to just apply. You feel good about yourself. You feel like you're being productive when you're applying to those jobs, but it's really not productive because it's a way better use of your time to apply to 10 companies and network deeply with 2 or 3 people at each of those 10 companies than to apply to hundreds and hundreds of jobs and not network at all. Right. And that's what happened with me. In my first 2 years of university, I applied to hundreds of jobs, didn't network with a single person, landed no interviews. In my 3rd year, I brought that down. I only applied to 13 companies. I did a ton of networking and I landed interviews at 8 of those 13 companies. And so networking is really the key to success when it comes to getting you in that door for your first internship.
Yeah, definitely. Even like in my experience, um, applying to a bunch of places does not work. I think I applied to over like 100 places in my first year. I only heard back from like 2, so it's definitely not like the go-to strategy for finding internships. And I guess like the next question I have is like, where should I apply?
Yeah, so the online job boards are a great starting place, right? A lot of companies will promote on LinkedIn or Indeed. I didn't know this, but Google actually has their own job board as well. And so, when you search like Google flights and you can go through all the flights, you can do the same thing with jobs, right? So if you search Google for jobs, it'll pop up a Google job board and it'll essentially pull from Monster and ZipRecruiter and all of these different mini job boards all over the place and bring all of the postings onto Google for you. So that's a really cool feature. You can also set up alerts and notifications on all those job boards. Another place would be to look at your school's job boards. I know sometimes people don't use their school job boards, so take a look at that because sometimes I've seen there's a lot of alumni, for example, that start a startup, and where do they find talent? They go back to their alma mater and they go to their school's career center and they ask them to post it to current students. So that's a great way to check out things as well. If you're looking in specific niches, so for example, if you want to work in the nonprofit space, a lot of nonprofit communities and centers will have resources and websites where there's amalgamated job postings. So for example, in London, the Pillar Nonprofit Network is a website that has a ton of resources for nonprofits, and there's also a ton of job postings and volunteer opportunities there. And a lot of people don't know about it because there's postings that will go up there and they'll be on there for weeks on end because nobody comes across them and applies to them. So looking at those kinds of websites, looking at your local chamber of commerce, looking at startup accelerators in your area. Sometimes those startup accelerator websites will have postings. So I know I saw last night Y Combinator has a site where basically all of their companies that go through their accelerator can post job opportunities on that site. And so there's a ton of startup jobs there as well. So those are some things to look at. And then finally would be company websites, right? So if you're interested in marketing, Google, marketing companies near me and literally go to every single website, go to their careers tab, because sometimes there'll be companies that don't put their postings on job boards. And so you just find them on their company website. So those would be a couple tips in terms of where to find jobs.
Yeah, and also just like mention like I think we talked about LinkedIn a little bit in the previous episode, but something on LinkedIn like your connections or might in your home feed might even be posting about jobs, and you can also find some really great opportunities through that as well. Um, for the next question, it's what resources should I leverage to help find an internship?
Yeah, so I think the biggest resource that you can leverage is your network and people, right? So reaching out to people just ahead of you. If you're interested in landing a marketing internship, talk to marketing students that are 1, 2, 3 years ahead of you, right? If you are, I'm working with someone right now that they're working in an administrative role and they're interested in getting into a marketing role, right? So it's good for them to go and reach out to colleagues that are in the marketing department to hear more about their day-to-day jobs, see what the recruiters are looking for on the marketing resumes, look to them for advice in terms of how they made the transition, right? If you're someone who is going through a transition from an untraditional background, right? Maybe you studied English and you want to get into tech, right? Find other people in tech who came from English backgrounds. Go on LinkedIn, do a little quick search. You can search for people working in tech, filter by English degrees from your school, and you can try and network with them to see if they have any resources and tips for you on translating and transferring from that untraditional career path. Second piece would be to just follow content creators on LinkedIn, right? So give me a follow, Matt Parkin. I'm on LinkedIn pretty much all day, every day. And if you go to my activity section, you can actually see all of the posts that I like and comment on. So if you're not sure of who to follow, go to my activity section, see who I follow, and you might find some interesting people that are posting job opportunities, that are posting tips for networking, for starting your own business, for running an e-commerce company, for email marketing and copywriting. I follow a ton of people with really, really great content. And it's just a very motivational and supportive community. So would definitely suggest checking out LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, and like as much as I hate to say, like the important reality is like a lot of people still don't find an internship in summer because it's just so hard to, especially as it gets more competitive year after year. So I was just wondering, like, what else can you do during your summer to help your career if you don't find an internship?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I mean, I only had one internship during my time at university there. And I know people that don't get any summer internships and then land a really, really cool full-time job after graduation. So the important thing to remember is it's all about using the opportunities that you have to grow and learn and make a little bit of money on the side as well, right? So something I did after my second year of university, I wanted to break into the consulting space. And none of the consulting companies gave me an internship. And so what I did was I said, okay, I don't need them. I'll start my own thing, right? So I started reaching out to startups, nonprofits, and small businesses. And I said to them, like, hey, do you need any help with anything? Like, I'm happy to work for free. I would love to support you and do a pro bono consulting initiative for you, right? You know, I was looking at your website. I have some ideas on how we can improve it to increase your sales and your bookings. I saw you were hiring for some more people, for some volunteers for your charity. Let me design you a recruitment marketing strategy for how to better attract volunteers. Or I see that you're struggling to find donations. Let me devise a strategy and a plan for you to improve your funding base and help you secure more grants, right? Those are little things that any small business, nonprofit owner is going to say, yeah, you want to work for free? Go ahead. Like, yes, thank you. Please give me what you can, because worst case, even if I was terrible and gave them nothing valuable, all they've lost is the 10, 15 minutes that they took to have a call with me, right? But there's so much upside and potential for them to gain. So that was something that went really well for me. Ended up starting it into an entire organization that's still around today, Parkin Consulting. They've worked with tens of thousands of people around the world, ton of impact. And I think it's a really great opportunity. So even if you're not trying to scale something to that size, even just working with local businesses, going out to a restaurant down the street and asking to make some videos for them or create some social posts, right? Those are tangible experiences that you can then take and say, hey, I'm applying for a marketing internship. Last summer, I worked with 3 local businesses to improve their marketing and drive X thousands of dollars in sales, right? So that freelancing piece is really helpful. Another thing that you can look at doing would be to join a nonprofit and volunteer, right? Because regardless of if you're getting paid for the experience that you're having or not, it's still experience, right? A lot of my resume in university was volunteer roles, because even though I was working paid jobs as a lifeguard and a camp counselor and a sports official, I think a lot of the transferable skills, the more impressive transferable skills, came from a lot of the nonprofits, a lot of the volunteering, a lot of the clubs that I was a part of. So that's always something to keep in mind too, in terms of tapping into the nonprofit and club space.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would empathize with like that entrepreneurial spirit that you displayed in that story. And for those people, I was just wondering, do you have any advice for people who want to do something more entrepreneurial, especially if they don't have like a product or service to offer right now?
Yeah, that's a really great question. If you're stuck in terms of an idea, think of your own life and think of things that you complain about and that you struggle with, right? So if you have something that really bothers you, for example, maybe for me, just thinking right now, like I have my Kleenex box across the room, my allergies are bothering me, you know, can I make a product or something that could potentially be able to move that Kleenex box across the room? Or could I make something where there's little mini packets of Kleenex that, magnetize to my laptop. And so on the back of my laptop, there's all this Kleenex there. Those are just two random ideas, but just taking a problem that you experience in your life and thinking, how can I make this better? Right? If you think of a lot of companies that have come to be, right? You think of Uber Eats, right? People were lazy. They didn't want to go to the restaurants and get their own food. Hey, why don't we create a platform where we can deliver food to people, right? Those are some great opportunities. So thinking about struggles that you have and problems that you can solve, I think are super helpful. Thinking of the skills that you have and how you can use them, right? So let's say you are really strong and you love being outside, right? Maybe you go and start a landscaping company, right? And help people cut their lawns. Or you see you have a lot of elderly neighbors on the street. Go offer to shovel their driveway for 10, $20, right? If I was elderly and injured and didn't want to go out in the cold, I'd give away $20, every couple of days, no questions asked for people to shovel my driveway, right? So that's something to think about in terms of if you don't have a problem that you can solve, think about your skill set and what you like doing and see if that can translate into something. Another example would be if you're really creative and you love to draw, right? Maybe you can draw pictures or paint paintings for people, right? And then sell those online, start a little e-commerce store going. There's so many different opportunities and possibilities. So just take whatever passion you have and run with it because the world's your oyster.
Yeah, definitely. Like as someone who also who like relating to the last point, I really love art. It took me a long time before I started like actually commissioning my artwork because I think a lot of people like just underestimate their own skill set and they don't feel like they're able to monetize what they're actually able to do. But I think a lot of people would surprise themselves at what people are willing to pay for. So I hope that like definitely encourages people to definitely go out there and like start their own business. But yeah, those are all the questions we have for today. So stay tuned for next week's episode. If you found this episode helpful, we'd love if you can rate our podcast and share it with a friend. If you want to learn more, check out our website, morningswithmattp.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at morningswithmattp, or follow Matt Parkin on LinkedIn.